Everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality, the self, the deep down basic whatever there is, and you're all that, only you're pretending you're not.
Who we are is not this physical body that we're in that is here for a moment and gone. Who we are is this infinite intelligence, and we forget that. The same intelligence that created this infinite universe that never ends is you.
For those of us seeking a way to transform life, to capture fulfillment in every now moment, to redefine our reality to live this life to its fullest. This is the Live This Life podcast. And I'm your host, Heath Cummings. I'm here to inspire you to ask yourself the question every single day. Are you living? Or are you killing time? We don't know where we're going until we know who we are, where we are in life, and what we are doing in this place and phase we find ourselves in. Welcome to the final episode of Season 3 of the show. The final episode of really this iteration of the podcast as well. We'll be moving and shaking and changing things a little bit and heading into a bit of a transitional phase once we move into Season 4. But the changes and adaptations that we'll be making are due to a lot of really great things that have been transpiring over the course of the past year, and really rolling with those punches. The show has expanded really exponentially. We're now in listen to about 110 countries, I think, is the last time I checked it. We were up to that, and that's up from about 20 more countries than we were this time last year. So thank you to all those new ears that are listening to the show right now. We've actually been charting pretty high in certain countries, in certain categories. And I know that one of the most recent reports that I saw that we were getting into the top 200 podcasts in countries like Uruguay, and we're on the top 50 in Israel, which is amazing. But a big shout out to everybody in all those places around the world that are tuning in. Extremely grateful. But yeah, we're on this course over the last year. We've just grown so much. I have grown so much. We all have. You, me. We're all definitely not the same person that we were a few years ago, and even just a week ago or a day ago. All those different experiences lead to a different type of person, and we learn from every one of those experiences. And it's only fair that we recognize that this vehicle that we're stuck in for this lifetime is just constantly changing and evolving. And in the universe, things tend to evolve into more complexity, and even though it becomes more complex, it becomes more perfect. The universe does strive for complexity and perfection, and we are no exception to that rule. We're becoming more complex, we're becoming more organized, and we're leveling up all the time. Hopefully, occasionally there's a backslide here and there, but for the most part, we're trudging forward and learning things. We're gaining that XP, that experience through the entire journey of this life. And just like our lives, this podcast is also continually evolving. The show, that I realize it now that it's become such a huge part of other people's lives just beyond my own, and it's really evolved along the way. And over the course of the past 3 years, there's just been so much that's changed, and it's going to continue to do so as long as we keep putting energy into it. And I have you all to thank for keeping the wind in my sails in this entire thing. Really, in the past year, since late 2021, we've been featured in so many different places. Amazon Music was one place. Google put us in their top 10 podcasts to check out. One of the months last year was late last year because I got bombarded right around Christmas time with a massive guest list that came up. So if you're on that particular guest list, I have not forgotten about you. This has been an extremely hectic year, just a lot of growth pains, and I'm still trying to catch up with this fast as this show's been growing. So sinking a lot more energy into it over the next year. So if you're on that list, I promise I will be getting to you soon, one way or another, but definitely trying to keep up with the growth that's been going on. But yeah, we've also been featured on a local television station. Big shout out to the Bernston Northfield Community Television. They approached me, wanted to feature the show from time to time on there. So great privilege to be on there. And then also we have full streaming episodes on Spotify as well, video episodes. So you can check those out. The YouTube channel, full episodes going on there. I think the last 8 or 9 episodes that we've done, every one of them has been in video. So if you weren't aware that we're doing video, I haven't really talked much about it on the show, but every single episode since I want to say like 102-ish, all of those are on Spotify for sure, and most of them should be on the YouTube channel. So if you want to see the video version, go check it out. But yeah, embracing all those changes and evolving with them as they've been happening, rolling with those punches. It's all been great, but it's also been really unplanned. So having to adapt to those has been, a huge thing. None of this stuff, like I've said a million times, was anything I've actually planned on. It's been a wonderful privilege and a gift all along the way. And we have to see our lives the same way. We have to see every one of those things that happens, whether it's good or bad, as just gifts that get presented. None of them can, maybe you can expect some, but you really have no idea how exactly those things are going to work out. I mean, when I just look back on the last year, just a year ago, some of these things I'm talking about, if someone would have told me back then that that's what was in store for me for the year ahead, I would have been so absolutely excited. And, you need to realize that the universe has all of that in store for you all the time. And when you take the right steps and you follow that recipe that a lot of the people out there in law of attraction circles, a lot of it is fluff and woo-woo, but a lot of it isn't. A lot of the most successful people in the world, movie stars and actors and musicians and everything, they follow this stuff to some sort of certain extent, and they usually have the same end result. So, I mean, using those examples and using the examples of what I just mentioned, all the things that have transpired over the past year, you use those as evidence that, there might be something to all this stuff, and there might be something very great in store for you. Like I said, if somebody would have told me a year ago of all the stuff that just happened for us and for the show and everything in the last year, it would have just been something that I would have been so looking forward to. So let this date that you're listening to the show, whenever it is, let this be your anniversary date. Pick this date on the calendar and approach the next 365 days with optimism, and just see a year from now, because these years go by so fast, just see a year from now what has transpired for you, all the great things. Journal it if you want to. Just keep a Word document on your computer, anything, send yourself a text message. All the great things that happen, document those things so you can take stock of them a year from now and look back and see where it leads. But if you've already done that and you've already kind of seen examples, listen to what I'm saying, just be absolutely lit up for what could happen in those next 365. The potential of where things could go is absolutely unlimited, because we really have no idea what possibilities lie in that road in front of us. The universe is just going to throw whatever it's going to throw at us. Just thinking of everything that's transpired in my last year, the amazing guests, the people I've crossed paths with, the addition of my amazing co-host, Alexis McQuillan, the addition of some apparel, some swag that's been coming out for the podcast, some of that I've sent out in the last few weeks. The store is going to start lighting up on livethislife.org, so check that out in the next few weeks. But yeah, I've been deciding we're going to brand out Live This Life a little bit, kind of a rival to some other companies that like to just talk about how life is good, which is a little bit of a unrealistic expectation. Things aren't just always good. I try to approach it from a more realistic perspective that it's not always going to be good, but it's always going to be life, and you have to find a way to live it no matter what. So yeah, just so many awesome things coming up. This show has just turned from, this thing I was really scared to do at one point into something that's really, truly been life-changing for me. And from what I've gathered from the people who've written into me, it's impacted them in wonderful ways. And I'm just really honored to be a part of that. So that actually reminds me to read some reviews. I've had some come through, and I've been really bad at trying to stay up with those. But for those of you who did enter a little drawing that we did a few months ago, you should have already received your stuff. If not, let me know. But thank you all for your patience. I'm sure, as you're aware, getting supplies on anything, especially if you're having things custom made, it's been kind of a battle lately in the last couple of years. But thank you for your patience. I absolutely love those reviews, so please keep them coming. Best place to do that is Apple Podcasts. It's the best place to leave those reviews if you're so called to do so. But those reviews will help us reach more people, since, all of you out there, you reach out, you continually share this with others, leave those reviews. All of that stuff helps us grow, and it keeps us moving to the top of the charts. So, sharing those episodes or videos on social media, telling family and friends, whatever you've got has all played a massive part. There really hasn't been a huge advertising campaign. I haven't had any really gigantic names of people helping push this. So it's really you all, and it really helps. It keeps the wind in my sails to keep this boat sailing along. So thank you all so much. So yeah, let me check this one out. I'm going to read this review. This one comes in from my super talented friend, Dr. Susan Corso, recent guest on here in the last few months. She leaves this review and titles it "Asking Fascinating Questions, Provoking Amazing Answers." Heath Cummings starts with a zing when he asks, "Are you living or are you killing time?" He's really asking, and from his podcast episodes, it's clear that he's getting answers, even if they're I don't knows or I'll find outs. So much of life is asking the right questions, and Heath is right there in the moment, asking with an open heart and open mind. Live This Life is a go-to resource for those of us who choose deeply to live this life and more, thrive in it. Sheer magic. Thank you so much, Susan. She was just an amazing guest. I'm really looking forward to having her on again soon, and also collaborating with her on some Clubhouse rooms, where we've talked about having some listeners ask her some questions live. So we're going to be doing that in season 4 at some point. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's definitely going to be another growth edge for us. We'll see how that one works out. But yeah, we'll be doing some episodes with Susan and some other people, some live ones soon. So please leave those reviews. You can follow along with the social media pages as well, and visit livethislife.org for the newest content. And there's going to be a lot of changes, like I said, coming up to the website in the next month or so. But I will announce those when they're done. Not hype them up until they're done. That's not my style. I like to talk about what I've done and not what I'm going to do. So I just like to show those results, and when they are ready to show, I will let you know. But one thing I did want to add is that you can actually leave me an anonymous audio message if you want, and leave a review that way, or you can just say hi. But the only way I'll know who you are, if you want to be recognized, is you have to leave your name in the video, in the audio that you leave for me, because there is literally no way. So if you get down on the show notes, down in the show description, you can click a link at the very bottom, and you can leave me that audio message. Like I said, it doesn't track who it is, and the only way I'm going to know is if you tell me your name. So leave that review that way, or like I said, just say hi. Either way, it'd be great to hear from all of you. So yeah, let's get on with today's episode. So at this place where I'm at right now, I'm recording this in late September 2022. And it's a place that I really couldn't have planned or dreamed of being. It's just kind of somewhere I ended up. It's just kind of where I've ended up by default. Taking inspired action when I could, moving inch by inch. But really, I had no concrete game plan as to how to make this ride take off like a rocket, like it has. And in evaluating where I really would like to be a year from now, trying to get a little bit more purposeful, I've come to a place where I really need to take stock of where I am now, where I have come from, really, and where I want to go, and really what I'm doing to get myself there. Just like in any circumstances in our life, if you're trying to set a course to get anywhere in your life from where you currently are to where you want to be, there's a few things you need to do. You need to figure out the obvious things. Where am I right now, and where am I going to? Where is it that I want to set that course to? And once you figure those things out, you need to know, in a literal sense, let's put some common sense to this application, this metaphor here. How am I going to get there? What's my mode of transportation? Plane, train, car, boat, maybe a jetpack, whatever. Your mechanism to get there is something that's probably one of the most important to get where you're going to go. You need to figure out how you're going to get yourself moving. The mechanism for us to get to a certain status or place in our lives doesn't so much depend on the how, because really things are going to unfold how they're going to unfold. Ultimately, we're not in control of the how a lot of the time. The universe is going to do things in whatever pace and whatever way. It's going to work that shit out in whatever way it wants to. I found out the hard way. Your best intentions sometimes don't work out that way, and you have to roll with the punches. And sometimes those difficulties along that road are there to sharpen your blade and toughen you up a little bit, and it leads to your highest evolution ultimately. But yeah, our mechanism getting where we want to go in that metaphorical sense in our lives depends really on who we are really deep down on our core. And granted, we can put on a show for people on who we are and who we claim to be. We can put it out there. It's all sunshine and rainbows. You hear me talk about the whole Instagram perfect thing. It bugs the hell out of me. But honestly, I'll be real with you all. I put on a show a lot. Especially when it comes to this show, I put on a show a lot, and I'll be first to admit it. I don't need anybody to call me out on that. You all on the show get a better version of podcast Heath. All of you in podcast land get podcast Heath. And I'm much more happy and polished when I'm doing this. This is a better version of me than I usually am any other time, because when I'm on the microphone and I'm doing this thing that really is turned into my dream job, I've really kind of discovered that this is really something that lights me up, and I enjoy it very much. So you get that highest vibing version of me, different than what the people in the rest of my life get out of me. This venture lights me up so much that it's hard to be in a bad place. And of course, when I'm not in a good place, I don't do an episode. Sometimes that's why I'm so few and far between sometimes. So it's easy to be lit up, and that's why I've learned to try to embody however I'm feeling at any given time. Try and do episodes even on days I'm not feeling it, but then also vice versa. Take that version of me into some of those most challenging environments, because that's where the greatest conditioning comes from, right? You become your highest version of yourself in the most challenging of environments. It's easy to be high vibing when you're doing something you love. It's easy to be high vibing when you're on vacation, and then when you come back from vacation, you got those vacation blues. You're back at work, you're not where you want to be. But those are the times where it's most important to try to bring yourself up as high as you can, because when you do that, it's going to be hard for anyone and anything to bring you down. It's almost that time you'd spend in the gym, or like running with a bag of sand on your back. You train the hardest, and that's the hardest part of any competition, is the training, the execution, the game, whatever it is, the boxing match, whatever. That should be the easiest part. And just like in those negative environments, those people in those circumstances shouldn't bring you down. So basically, you can be that high vibing person any given time. And that leads to a full character reconditioning and a complete habit change. And that can completely transform your life. And that becomes that different vehicle, that different person that leads you to that place that you want to end up going. So at this part of my life, I'm taking you all into this like inside glimpse, this small sliver of the life that I end up having to live. And I think it's some of those inside glimpses that you don't get from some of the people in those higher positions that fill stadiums up, and they're putting on this big show and this rah-rah thing. you don't get the inside glimpses of their lives. And a lot of them will tell you that you shouldn't ever show people that inside glimpse because it almost like ruins the mystique. But I beg to differ. I think that people, if they're looking up to you, if they look up to me in any sort of way, if they see that I have mental health issues sometimes, I have difficulties operating in this world that we're in, I think when they see those parts of you and they realize like, oh, it's okay for me to do that. And when those times ebb and flow and those things pass, because life does go up and down, it's not always up there filling stadiums and being constantly positive all the time. It's okay to have those moments and still be able to accomplish things in life. Those circumstances will lead you to some of your greatest and grandest versions. I'm not super proud of those low moments that I have. And I guess as a result, the highest outcome of some circumstances and interactions that I have with people, they don't manifest themselves. Yeah, the most beneficial outcome of someone encountering me at my worst days isn't as good as what it would be if they encounter me on my best days. If I act really shitty towards someone, then they're going to have a shitty perspective of me, and I'm going to have a shitty response back to them, and it reverberates. It's a negative feedback loop. If I'm low vibing and I let life get me down, I'm going to be down and not allow the good to come into my life. But consider the flip side. If I come at those circumstances with a smile, no matter what, I might actually shift someone else's attitude, even if they're having a horrible day, just by how I responded to them. And that can reverberate out in the world and affect things. It's when I'm fully self-aware like that, and I'm mindful of my actions and my words, and I'm actually acting in the highest potential good for those around me. That is when I often see the positive repercussions of those actions. And it's become really amazing because sometimes it's almost an immediate feedback loop. I can sense something going sour, and I can immediately adjust something right there, and you can just see the tone of a situation or the room completely shift where I've approached something in not such a highly advanced way and not presented my best self, and then put the brakes on and immediately turn the situation around. And it's amazing. In those moments you can see it happening. Which is why I'm trying more and more to bring that podcast Heath to the real world, rather than the one that's the tired, grumpy, overwhelmed, overworked guy not putting his best foot forward. So really, when we sit back and we look at where we want to be in our lives, we aren't going to see a clear picture of that person and that version of our life unless we ask ourselves, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? We're going to dive into that and what all that means in just a minute. If you haven't tried some of Organifi's products, you are absolutely missing out on some of the highest quality supplements on the planet. I'm someone who doesn't allow anything into my body that I'm not 100% sure of its purity, and this company goes above and beyond to certify the quality of their products many times over. My day starts and ends with Organifi, and I've literally never felt more amazing. In the morning, I use the Organifi green juice in combination with the complete chocolate protein powder after my demanding tough morning workout. I mix it in with some vanilla almond milk, maybe some kale or some banana, and the energy that flows from that is something I've never felt before. And at the end of a long day, I settle down with some of the gold chocolate with a little almond milk and some coconut oil for a hot drink that helps my beat up body and mind recover and get the rest that it needs to keep up with my demanding schedule. I literally do not know what I would do without this company. Go check out their amazing product line at OrganifiShop.com. That's OrganifiShop.com. And if you find something you want to check out, use the coupon code LIVETHISLIFE to save 15% off of your purchase. So again, this is the time of year that I typically try to find balance in my life more than any other time. I've talked about it on the show lately, where I've been diving into a little bit more of like a natural flow and a natural calendar, and really looking to connect back to what I think is more of our natural selves. And nature evolves things. So Nothing is more perfect than nature. No matter how much our small little primitive human species seems to think that we can outmaster, outmaneuver, and outwit nature. Ultimately, it's going to get us back. If we screw with it enough, it's going to get us back, and we're kind of seeing the repercussions of some of that stuff work itself out right now. But ultimately connecting back to nature a little bit more and connecting back to like a natural calendar has really inspired me lately. And I talked about that in previous episodes. And it goes all the way down to, back in religious practices and how those religious practices and politicians have changed our calendars. Because really all those things are all intertwined into this whole like societal connection of manipulation and everything that's gone on for almost 2 millennium now. Really the higher power that governs the universe and everything, it knows better than any one of us is going to. And it seems like those people who are always trying to manipulate the calendar and our way of interconnecting to a higher source or whatever else, seems like they're the ones who have kind of kept the world in bondage in a certain way. So whatever they say and whatever they do and whatever they have said and done over the past couple thousand years, it's the things I'm kind of leaning further away from. So basically, to break that cycle, to break away from the matrix, I'm basically leaning towards more of an opposite of everything they have always told us to do. So I started looking into the significance of solar calendars, and I've talked quite a bit about that lately. You can breeze through some of the previous episodes. There's one that I did back around the winter solstice of Christmas of 2021. So I can't remember what episode it was right now. But yeah, I talked about how our solar cycles have an extreme significance on our existence. And, I followed along with that trend for the last few years. And around this time of my birthday, it falls right on the fall equinox. And right around the spring and the fall equinox, as well as the winter and summer solstices, I kind of take stock of what's supposed to be the thing that we're focusing on at that time of year. And, like I said, I happen to be born right at the fall equinox. So it's a great time when there's equal amounts of summer, daylight and nighttime. It's the end of summer, really. It's a great time to find that balance and take stock of your life and find everything else in your life that you need to adjust to get your balance. What am I doing too much of and not enough of, and get that balance? And yes, we should do that all the time. But like I said, in our busy lives, we tend to let things get completely out of balance. So whether people use the moon cycles, I know some people that use moon cycles when there's a new moon, they reaffirm their goals and then try and build them up to the point of the full moon and manifest them. And then the point between the full moon and the new moon again, when the moon gets smaller and disappears out of the sky, it's like they're taking stock of where they were from the beginning of that moon cycle to the next. So it's the same thing for the equinox. And it's amazing because around that time of my life, so many times throughout my life, I've had crazy things happen around the time of my birthday. I actually gave my notice in law enforcement on my birthday. I put the final steps together and kicked it off this podcast right around the time of my birthday in 2019. So there's a whole bunch of other ones that have happened. There's just too many things to even list. But yeah, I've had some pretty good things and some pretty nasty things happen on near or around that time frame. But what was weird was, at this time this year, nothing major happened. My birthday came and went, and it was no big deal. Or so I thought. Nothing profoundly earth-shattering happened at the time. But I found myself pretty beat up and run down, and having worked a bunch of like 50 and 60-hour work weeks since we got back from all our vacations at the end of August. That and on top of trying to do all this insane winter preparation around the house, it literally left me just physically and mentally completely burned out. And I got myself all out of whack, which if you've been following along with my story, the whole post-cancer way of living is extremely strict for me. I have to do a whole lot of things health-wise to make sure that I'm good, because I didn't do the chemo and radiation and all that. So I have to be very strict on everything that I do, and I fell way off. And it took me close to 2 weeks just to get myself collected back again. And I mean, I wasn't going to the gym, which I'm kind of a gym rat. It's like my natural Prozac. And, I wasn't sleeping enough. My diet wasn't strict. My hydration wasn't good. I wasn't being out in the sun, all that stuff. And I was finding myself slipping off into a bit of a depressive state because of it all. And that can happen. That can happen when we get ourselves overburdened and overwhelmed, and the weight of the world starts to bury us, and we don't have those things that keep us on the top of our game there, in our lives like we should. So I stepped away from a lot of stuff for a while. Yet again, I've done it a lot this year. I'm first to admit it. It kind of sucks because it's not the greatest thing for your momentum when you're trying to get a lot of things done. You're trying to be the CEO and creative director and host of a podcast. You're trying to be in a position of leadership in a town government. All the stuff, husband, father, everything, and I had to just be fine with letting everything be what it was and take care of myself. And in the midst of all that, ask who am I, and am I able to answer that honestly as someone who cares enough about themselves and can be a little bit selfish about their own mental health and well-being, and be someone who's going to take care of that? Or was I going to try and be the tough guy and grind things out at my own self-sacrifice and the sacrifice of my health, and ultimately let that lead to maybe even a worse injury? Like say you bust an ankle and you don't stop and let it heal and wrap it up and do what you're supposed to do. It's just going to get worse, and eventually you're going to be not able to run, walk, or maybe even crawl. Like you're going to grind yourself to a halt. And I did the same thing. And like I said, when I'm in that state, when you're in that state as well, you're not resonating with your highest possible potential that you're able to reach. There's recipes for this stuff. You meditate, you hydrate, you eat well, you do all these things, and your brain is firing on all cylinders. So when you want to reach for the stars and you want to go after your goals, you've got it all. You've got that fuel to carry you through the day. You're coming up with ideas. You're high vibing with the people that you interact with and making plans with and creating episodes or whatever it is. And when those things aren't there, you're not there, and it's not going to be where it needs, and your relationships and your goals and everything's going to suffer. As much as you're trying to grind it out, you're not going to get the best. So what do? Do you slow things down for the sake of speeding up afterwards, or you keep the momentum going? It's tough. It's 6 in one, half dozen in the other. So I found it best for me because I just want to be in a good place, and I don't like feeling that overwhelmed that I just put the brakes on it. You have to let your best version get out there, because then you're in resonance. Then you're there. You're sort of tapped in and tuned in to all the great things that are going on in the universe around you, and things get delivered. You make those weird connections with people. You cross paths with people at random places. Those synchronicities, all that weird stuff happens. So yeah, if you're really good at this stuff, you'll ask yourself often, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? And if you're not so good at it, like I am sometimes, you'll screw up, and you'll have to wait until like a celestial date pops up on a calendar, your birthday, or sickness slaps you in the face, like it slapped me upside the head, and I need to crack my thick dome to make me sort of take stock of what the hell's going on. And life gets crazy. It's all I can say. And no matter where you are in that journey of self-awareness, all that matters is that you are somewhat self-aware. Whether you're at a 1 or a 10, you're at least there and becoming self-aware. And all that matters is that you get to that place and you put the brakes on and you evaluate what's going on. That's the benefit of having great people around you, mentors, life coaches, or even a therapist. I'll give a plug out to BetterHelp. I've got to give a huge shout out to my guy, Bruce, who's my therapist from BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com is an amazing sponsor of the show. And, actually check out their link in the show notes. We're going to be doing a lot more plugs and working with those guys a bunch more in season 4. But yeah, he's been awesome in keeping me on my toes and giving me some tips and things to go by from week to week. And it's been an amazing help through some of the rough spots that I've had lately. But yeah, it doesn't ultimately take a breakdown or a therapist or something like that to get you to take stock of your life. But, if you're not as self-aware as maybe some other people are, at some point you need to become a little bit more fully self-aware and just realize that you're not maybe presenting the best self version of yourself to the world. Are you so goal-oriented? Are you so driven that you get to your end goal, or you're trying to get to your end goal, and that end goal, that thing at the horizon, is obscuring your view of everything else that's important, or at least that should be important in life? That kind of brings me, a lot of this episode's inspired by like a situation with Tom Brady right now. Him and his wife of 13 years, mother of his kids, big supermodel, famous woman, and she actually, from all the things I've seen, is a really great person. They're on the rocks. Why? Because he's a driven guy. He's a little too driven, in my opinion. He's a little too focused on an area of his life that he can't see the bigger picture, because he's focused on that end goal, whatever that is, for whatever reason. He's focused on football, and that's it. And if I were in his position, it's easy for me to say in a Monday morning quarterback type position. If I was in his role and been where he was, how would I feel? Is football going to give him more memories beyond this year if he's planning on this being it? Because he's already called it a day. He's already retired once. Those times that he's already missed out on with his family, and all the times he stands to miss out on because he's choosing to focus so much on that part of his life rather than the bigger picture. I don't know. That's tough. I'm not going to sit here and judge, because the man has such a different life than I do. But really, I've been in maybe similar positions where it's like, do you want that huge driven goal, or do you want to maintain everything else that's good in your life? What's at stake? What do you stand to gain or lose? And you evaluate those things on your own when you become so much more self-aware. But for the rest of us, the non-Tom Bradys of the world, have you gotten any sort of taste of success, whether it's financial or notoriety, a new title, whatever it is? Are you letting the ego that gets inflated a little bit from those things, are you letting those things get in your way of your highest version being presented to the world? Have you lost a level of self-awareness because of that? Have you lost some of your self-awareness due to an accumulation of that notoriety, because the ego gets super inflated and blocks your view? It obscures what's really big and important in your life. And asking that question, who am I? Am I not only asking the right questions of myself, but am I actually trying to find those answers? It's those answers. It's that part of it that's truly and honestly the key. And sometimes we don't want to hear those answers because they're tough, because it means we've been screwing up a lot and we got a lot of work to do. But if the version of you that you see, if you ask yourself that question, is something you're not truly in resonance with, and isn't going to be in resonance with the highest version of yourself, then it's time for you to course correct and get yourself back on track. If you think you're going to drive a dump truck across the ocean to get to your destination, you're going to find out the hard way that you're not going to make it. You got to think again. You got to make sure that you get the right vehicle for the journey. And if your vehicle is one that people aren't going to want to follow, if they're not going to want to cherish you, then you got to rethink it. If they're not going to long for when you're not there with them, if they don't miss your company, then it might be time to do something just a little bit different. For me, in taking stock of my life, I realize one of my worst fears when I've dug into myself in the last month, I want to say, is what happens when I'm gone. The thought of not being remembered when I pass on, or being remembered for all the wrong reasons, was one of my biggest motivators to change how I presented myself to the world, and it still is. Of course I have my moments, like I said, but those moments I feel like are becoming few and further between. And I've used a specific person in my life as the motivation for that. Without mentioning this person, they aren't really presenting their best version to the world. And I know that because it's not just my opinion. There's a lot of people who we mutually know this person, and they have been known for a lot of the wrong reasons for a very, very long time. And it's getting later in their life. And I've brought this up in conversation before when people have griped about them. What is it going to make that person change? And a lot of people's opinions were, it's an old dog and you're not going to teach them new tricks and they're never really going to learn. And that really sucks. I really can't go with that. I know some people are very stuck in their ways and they maybe never will change, but it really it hurts me to think that is going to be the way that they're going to be remembered for their life. That time is running out to really persuade people's opinions of them, and that unless they make a drastic change in the way that they approach life, the way that they treat people, that is going to be what their legacy is and how they leave it behind. And that's made me become so much more self-aware, because I don't want to be remembered as that person. Even walking away from a horrible situation or an argument or a confrontation or whatever, I like to squash those as soon as possible, because I'm like, man, what if this is the last time I have a conversation with that person? Is this how they're going to remember me? And it's one of my things, having several brushes with death and, serious illness and stuff. It's just something, I talk about all the time, about not knowing if I was going to make it to 40. And that changed the way I approach the world. And now that I'm 42, every one of these years that comes up around my birthday, it's a gift. And it's just something that motivated me so greatly. I want to get to the end destination, the end of this ride. I want to be someone that was missed and someone that was valued and whose words and legacy lives on forever, long after I'm gone. That's something that really motivated me and still motivates me to this day. When you look at that recipe of who am I, where am I, and what am I doing, what that ends up ultimately leading to, all those elements, they blend together to paint a life portrait. And when I look at the end destination of my life, when my book comes to a close, that could be tomorrow for any one of us. Hopefully the painting that I've created will be one that not only I intentionally meant to create, but one that people are going to step back and look at and say, that was a great person, and it's going to be heavily missed. That's like I said, I'm here celebrating 42, and I'm so grateful for it. Just turned 42 right around that time of that equinox, and I'm here and I'm doing well. And a huge part of that, my recipe for success, is just being there in that self-awareness. And no matter how much we might roll on and trudge through life and everything, whatever kind of momentum of success that we have or not, our number could get pulled tomorrow. And if it was, what sort of legacy are you leaving behind? And how do you want to be remembered? After your funeral is over and your existence is just a memory, what sort of impact, what sort of conversations are people going to have about you when you leave this place? And that happens to be my priority. I'm not sure if it is for everybody, but that's what motivates me to be better every day. And that's what motivates me to wake up and ask me the question I'm titling this episode of: who am I, where am I, and what am I doing? And whatever it happens to be, when you ask yourself those questions, let those be something that if you don't like the answer to it, you change it that day. And ask yourself that every morning, and change it every single day until you're happy with the answer that you get. Because if you're not going where you want to go, that you got to course correct. That's the only way around it. No one's going to show up and do it for you. I can't do it for you. You can listen to as many of these episodes like me or people like me. You're never going to get there because of what somebody else says. It's the actions that you need to take. It's the course corrections that you need to take so that, the vehicle that you have is the right one to get you to that place where you like to answer those questions in the morning when you wake up. That vehicle's you. That vehicle is one that needs to be running on the highest possible fuel and making the efficient moves, and it's got to be the right kind of vehicle for the journey. And if it starts breaking down, you got to pull it over the side of the road and give it a break. But ultimately, if your goal is to be someone that no one cares about when you leave this world, then by all means, keep being a mean, nasty, judgmental person and divisive and gossip about people. Focus on the negative things and talk about nothing but that. Talk about people and gossip every chance you get. If that's how you want to be remembered, that's going to be the surefire way that you're immediately forgotten once you hit the dirt. I guarantee it. But if you want to make a positive impact on the world, figure out what steps you need to take and take them now and start that journey today. So I'm going to share a couple of very powerful clips on this subject, and I'll share a couple in this grand finale of season 3. So here is Tyrone Stokes and Jordan Peterson on figuring out where you are based on knowing thyself.
Who are you? What do you want from your life? Ask that question. And once you know the answer, write it down. Write down exactly what you want for your life vision, your life purpose. And once you have that, go over it every single day. Every single day. Create pictures in your mind. Write down how you were going to get that life. What do you have to do to claim that life? Who do you have to become to claim that life? You see, most people, when asked that question, can't answer it. Most people, when asked, what do you want from life, cannot answer the question. They don't know what they want for their own life. They're just wandering around here aimlessly. Most people don't even know what they really want for their own life. And guess what? People who don't know where they're going to end up. Someplace they don't want to be. That does not have to be you. The first key is to get quiet. Get in a space alone and ask yourself, who am I? What do I really want for my life? What do I need to do to live my best life? What is my purpose? Why must I do this? What example do I want to set to everyone around me, especially those I love, those close to me? What legacy do I want to leave? Once you have that clarity and clear purpose, you can get to work, making every day your best day, growing and evolving every day, setting the example of a great life every day, loving the life you are living every day. Claim that life today. Don't put it off any longer. You deserve this.
The Greeks had the maxim, know thyself. How do we come to know ourselves in terms of our personalities and, more importantly, potential? Well, one of the first ways to come to know yourself is to understand that you don't. You can learn to kind of watch yourself like you're watching a stranger, but you have to adopt a position. It's a position of radical humility, I would say. Humility in two senses. So one sense would be the humility of recognizing your ignorance. So you have to understand that you don't know who you are. And that's not easy to understand because you think you know, but then you remember you can't control yourself very well. You're not very disciplined. You're full of flaws. Maybe you don't know yourself as well as you think, but it's hard to get low enough to understand how deeply it is the case that you are ignorant about who you are. Now, there's an upside to that too, which also is that you're also ignorant about who you could be. And so the discovery of that, is some reward for the horror of determining who you actually are. And then I would say, well, then you watch yourself. You watch yourself like you're watching a stranger. You watch what you say and you listen. And you think, well, what sort of person would say that? And how am I reacting emotionally when I'm communicating in that manner? Well, you'll discover a little bit more about your potential as you discover who you are, especially the darker parts of yourself, because then you discover your potential for mayhem. There's some real utility in that. It's actually something that strengthens you, because the first thing that a realization like that can in fact produce is the ambition to incorporate that dangerousness into a higher order personality, and that can make you implacable. Take a bit of a look at yourself and think about what's not so good that you could improve, that you should improve by your own standards, and that you would improve. It's watching like you're a snake. A snake watches like cold-bloodedly, with no emotional reaction, just to see what's there. It doesn't allow, symbolically speaking, doesn't allow what is wanted or desired to interfere with what is observed. So you watch yourself like that, as if you don't know who you are. Well, that's the beginning. And then you challenge yourself continually to see how far past yesterday you could push today and tomorrow, and to continually experiment with expanding the domains not only of your competence but of your ability to increase that competence. And the upper limit to that is proportional to the moral effort that you put into it. The more that's guided by the highest of all possible visions, right? The alliance with the highest of all possible conceivable good. And the more it's accompanied by truth in speech and action, the more you will develop your potential.
Check in on the life you want every single day. What do you have to do? Who do you have to become to get that life? Once you merge those two things, the world of what was and the world of what you want it to be will inevitably collide. And that's going to bring me to the song that I'm going to leave you all with for this season finale. This is Eula's newest one. It's called Collide. Just dropped on October 14th. So go get it. I'm going to put the link to Eula's stuff in the show notes. So go check out his catalog. An amazing artist. So grateful that he's given us the opportunity to feature his music on the show. I want to thank you all for this amazing ride, for wanting the best for yourselves, wanting a better life, and for taking all the steps you're taking to advance your life and the world around you. I'll catch you all in season 4. Keep living. If you have show suggestions, guest suggestions, or you have an inspiring story to share, hit me up and maybe we can connect for an episode. You can reach me at connect@livethislife.org.